911 turbo prices continue to decrease, but there are big differences between the generations. 991.2 turbos are, for example, down by 11.5% compared to last summer, while 997.1 turbos decreased by only 3.5%. So this means that the direction of the price trends is now finally the same for all generations, but that the magnitudes aren't. And this is of course important to take into account if you're thinking about buying or selling a turbo. Is the time right for it? Or are you better off waiting a bit longer? That and more we will figure out in this video. As always, we'll start with a market overview before looking into the price trends. Over here we have the clean title cars that are listed for sale, split by generation. Total supply sits at 738 cars and the median price is $164,000, and this is $8,000 less than 3 months ago. We can also see that prices already start in the low 50s for an old 996 with a high mileage, while high-spec 992s can go for $350,000. Now looking at the relationship between the generations, we can see familiar patterns. 996 and 997.1 turbos are priced at the same level, while 997.2s are a small step up. However, prices really increase rapidly when you start to look at the 991s and 992s. So prices for the older cars are much more spread out, and this means that the older turbos that are in excellent condition can be as expensive as fresher 991s. And with that out of the way, let's have a look at the price trends. Over here we have the price trend for the 996 turbo, and look at that. This is something that we don't see anymore these days. A flat price trend. Prices did not move during the last 6 months, while prices for most other cars decreased. And this means that compared to July 2020, prices are up by 54%. Good news if you're an owner. Although, as we discussed in my previous market update, it are mainly the low mileage examples that are driving the increase. If we look at the price development per mileage bucket, we can see that the increase for the cars with more than roughly 59,000 miles is lower than the increase in the rest of the market. You can also see that the premium for low mileage cars is very high. And all of this signals that the 996 Turbo is becoming, or already is, a collectible car. However, while the 996 appeared to be strong at first, it also appears to show signs of price weakness. And some of you might have already observed this. If we go back to the price trend, we can see that the development in the median price is stable, but that the confidence intervals decreased, especially at the top end. And this weakness becomes visible when we split the data. We can see now that compared to June 2020, or in other words, the market top, prices decreased by 6.5% in the base market and by 16.3% in the Turbo S market. The latter price decrease might seem extreme, and it is, there's no question about it. But we need to keep in mind that the price uncertainty in this market is relatively large due to the low supply. So let's focus on the base model. Prices decreased in this market, but the decrease is relatively small compared to other markets. Compared to last year, prices are still up by 12.5%. Again, many markets are currently sitting below 0%, so this result is not too bad. The drop is then also not statistically confirmed, and this means that it could be the result of chance. And all of this could be related to the supply trend. This is still downward sloping for the base model. So summing up the 996 market, we can conclude that not only compared to other turbo generations, but also to the rest of the market, the 996 market is relatively strong. It are especially the low mileage cars that increased in price, and these are then also still expensive as hell. Yet, we can also see that prices start to come down slightly, so even the 996 turbo market is not immune to the market trend. And with that, it's time to have a look at the 997 segment. Also over there, prices are relatively strong when you compare them to the rest of the market. But I would like to get your attention for today's video sponsor before we continue. Whether you're someone who buys a car as an investment or to drive it as much as possible, we all know the power of a car as a good asset. After all, the right ones can appreciate, even during raging inflation. And there's another physical asset with limited supply that can gain value even in the hardest of times. Best of all, it could possibly mean money back in your pocket. Don't believe me? The ultra-rich are projected to double their spending on this asset this year, even as most other investments struggle. What am I talking about? Not classic cars, but fine art. It's not just bigwigs at auction making a penny of art this year. Masterworks members have too. Now I'm not an art guy, but this isn't cryptos or NFTs, so don't worry. Masterworks lets you invest in actual fine art by qualifying their paintings with the SEC, so they can split them into shares for you to invest in. And when you sell, you get a slice of the potential profits. So how have they done? Even in 2022's investing bloodbath, in 8 of their 9 exits, Masterworks has delivered net returns to their investors of more than 13.9%. Masterworks has done so well getting results this year, there's actually a waitlist right now. But you can skip it with my special link in the description. I think this is a genius opportunity. Let's go back to the 997 market. Over here we have the prices for the 997.1 Turbo, 997.2 Turbo and 997.2 Turbo S. During the last 3 months, .1 base models lost 6.6%, .2 base models 9.3% and the .2 S models 5.4%. And especially the decrease in the .2 base market is large. But keep in mind that the price uncertainty is also large. Supply is low in this market. It makes more sense to trust the other two price trends. Looking at the 1 year change, we can see that .1 base models are down by 5.6% and the .2 S market by 1.6%. The decrease in the base market is approximately the same as what we can see in some other markets, but the decrease in the .2 S market is on the low side. I mean, just by looking at these price trends, it's evident that they are not exceptionally weak. Price trends in some other markets show this kind of cliff pattern, in which the decrease rate is accelerating, but we cannot see that over here. And the reason for that could be the supply development. Supply did not change in the 997.1 base and 997.2 S market. It even decreased in the 997.2 base market. Supply on a standalone basis is not a good predictor for prices, but a low level is unlikely to cause further price decreases. And with that we move on to the 991 segment. Compared to the previous generations, prices decreased much more. They are even close to pre-pandemic levels. Looking at these trends for the .1 and .2 base and S models, it is evident that the momentum is down. Prices decreased especially in the .2 market. Compared to last year, .2 S models decreased by $20.6 thousand or 10.6%, while .2 base models lost 10.5%. 2019 cars lost the most, but the decrease is clearly visible in the complete market. Compared to March 2020, so just at the start of the pandemic, .2 S models are up by only 5.7% and .2 base models by 7.1%. In the meantime, mileage has of course doubled, so you need to pay now slightly more than at the start of the pandemic, but you get a car with approximately 14,000 miles instead of 7,000 miles. On a like-for-like basis, so comparing the cars with the same model year and mileage, the cars are still between 10 and 15% more expensive than in March 2020. Things look a lot better in the 991.1 market. These cars are slightly older and therefore might be less susceptible to depreciation. Compared to last year, prices decreased by 7.9% in the S market and by 6.3% in the base market. Compared to March 2020, prices are still up by 12 and 13%. And again, this last number would be higher when you make a like-for-like comparison. Now if we combine our observations in the .1 and .2 market, we can see that especially the .2 market is a lot weaker than the market for the 996 and 997 turbos. Supply patterns are then also completely different. Look at those swings. During the price frenzy, supply plummeted, but the trends pivoted during last winter and have been pointing up ever since. 991.2 S supply is with 120 cars even at the same level as March 2020. So what does this mean for the 992? Are things even worse over there? Well, no. This market of course benefited from the high scarcity level caused by the limited supply, but also over here prices are coming down. Over here we have the trends for the base and the S models, but before looking at the numbers, I need to mention that the first data points are not that accurate. In March there were only 13 cars listed for sale. The most recent data points we can trust. Supply is well above 200 cars, but the supply increase rate started to decrease now. Looking at the price trends, we can see that compared to the market top of June, they decreased by 8.4% in both market segments. And if you watched last week's video, then you know that this is the same as the price decrease in the McLaren market. In general, price trends are highly correlated when it comes to the newer models. Nevertheless, the 8.4% decrease is an average. If we look at the price development split by model year, we can see that 2022 S models lost approximately 13% and base models approximately 14%. Moreover, as you can see from the lines, 2022 cars hardly increased in value. If you got one at the beginning of the year, added 1.5 thousand miles, which is the market average, it's unlikely that you can come out of it with no loss. And with that, it's time to wrap up and conclude. Prices decreased in a complete turbo market, but the drops are the largest for the latest generations. This is evident when we look at all the models combined. We can see that the 991 generation tends to have the largest losses. Both .2 models lost more than 10%, and whether this is just because the cars are the newest or because supply in the 992 market ramped up is difficult to say from the data only. If we move down, we find the 997 and 996 generation. 996 prices are even up by 12%, and this is rather unique in the current market condition, but something that we have also seen in the 996 GT3 market. 996s are still very hot. But what does all of this mean for you as a buyer, seller or owner? Let's start with the last one. What this means for you as an owner is completely dependent on your motivation for owning the car. If you just want to drive it, enjoy it and couldn't care less about the values, all of this of course doesn't matter. But it's great that you made it till here in the video. Now if you do care about values, it's time to decide if you are going to keep this car for a long time or not. If you want to sell now, you most likely will sell with a small loss. The market top was 6 months ago. If you're going to keep it for a long time, I think it's wise to adjust your value expectations accordingly. Price trends only just turned down, and so far there are no indications that they will flatten anytime soon. Now if you're a buyer, or to be more precise, a buyer who cares about values, it might be worthwhile to wait a moment and see how things turn out. Will the price decrease flatten, and are we returning to a normal depreciation rate, or is this just the beginning and will the decrease rate accelerate? It's simply too early to say at this point, so if you're buying right now, you need to take into account the possibility that you are catching a falling knife. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car markets, but would like to see the analysis for a different car, let me know the name of that car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. Don't forget then to subscribe and to click on the notification bell so you get notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.